What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. On today's episode, guys, you know what it is. We're talking Week 11 waiver wires. We've gone through 10 weeks of the season now, and it has been insane. And we still, luckily enough, had at least 4 more weeks or 4 more weeks for most of us, and 7 more weeks for some of us. So we're going to be talking some waiver wires, and of course, we're going to be doing some cuts and keeps on some players who may be not worthy on your roster at this point. So, as always, let me introduce Coach Jibbs to the show. Buddy, what's going on? Oh, I have you on mute. My bad, brother.
Yeah, sorry for being late, but better late than never. Coach Jibbs has arrived. They're doing pretty good. Week 10 treated me right. Even though it was kind of like some crazy week with like a bunch of bums scoring touchdowns. I was quite shocked of like the turnout, but kudos to those guys getting their touches and their long due touchdowns. But for me, doing good.
Good to hear, brother. Week 11 was interesting. A lot of blowouts, which kind of feel like made fantasy not go nuts in terms of players going off, I feel like. But it is what it is, and we're going into week 11 now, guys. This is a time of year where, your trade deadlines are coming up. So get those trades out there. Send us your trades. We're happy to help you out. Try to make the right ones. I know myself, I was at work all day, wheeling and dealing today and trying to help my teams get to that next step because my deadlines are tonight. So if you guys need help, just hit us up on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy, and we'll help you out with that. So into the show now we go. Week 11 waiver wires, and we'll start with quarterback pickups this week. Coach Jibbs, what do you got?
Oh, my quarterback pickup. And it might not be like a this week kind of thing, but for long term, I like Cam Newton just to see him being used like in special packages just to kind of get him warmed up and up to speed on the Panthers' new offense was pretty good. And we saw him go in the end zone, and he scored 1 passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. So it looks like the old Cam Newton's kind of back, but like not really, obviously. But if he could get this, he looked way better than Sam. He looked very optimal. He looked way more efficient than Sam Darnold's have been like the last month or so. So if he could get this Carolina Panthers offense back on track, the sky's the limit, and you never know. Like, even if you have like a stud quarterback in your 1 quarterback league, just pick him up. If you have a roster spot, you don't want someone else to use him. And Cam Newton, he has those moments where he has those 30-point games, and he also has those moments where he's kind of a dud. But still, I wouldn't want to be playing against him in the fantasy playoffs.
That is true. And even in this week, if you're thinking of this week alone, he does play Washington, who are one of the worst teams against quarterbacks. And we saw already his talents in the red zone is unmatched. So he hasn't been named the starter just yet for Week 11, but it's probably going to happen. So if you're looking for a quarterback, Cam Newton is a fantastic way to go in fantasy for you this week. On my side, guys, this is a tough one, but I'm gonna stick with Tua. I know I'm not saying as a biased offense fan. You guys know me at this point. I'm not a biased football player team here. I go with what I know. And the New York Jets have allowed 176 points to the last 4 teams that they played. And now the Miami Dolphins gets a chance against this really, really bad Jets defense here. Tua still recovering from that finger injury, but has already been named the Week 11 starter. And again, he didn't do that much for us last week, but another week with the finger being, recovered, injured, healed, and the offense is in a right spot where I think you can rely on Tua for you this week. I know Matthew Stafford is going to be out. I kind of missed that part of the segment. I rushed it today. But he could fill in nicely really much for you for this week because the Jets are terrible. And Tua has seen us when he's played bad opponents. He's been able to put up really good fantasy numbers, and this is a bad opponent. So he's under that 40% mark. He's around that 30%. He might be my top pickup if I needed a quarterback for this week in fantasy. Maybe not long-term, but for this week, for sure.
That's great. Like, you hear Rex Ryan chirping at Robert Saleh because they were comparing each other. And, he was like, oh, this historically bad defense. And,
I mean, he comes over as a defensive coordinator, and his defense is this bad. I mean, it's the one thing you're supposed to be good at. So
yeah, look, Dan Campbell was calling plays yesterday. Yeah, he just ran the ball. Hey, if you could do that on defensive side, hey, so be it. Dan Campbell's trying to win games. How about you guys try?
Care about his tight end history with himself. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. Hey, what's up, Kyle, buddy? How's it going, man? Long time no talk. I have to get you back on the podcast soon, my friend. Thanks for joining into our show at some point today. But I kind of missed like half the segment today, Jibs. I missed the news and everything, man. I am a.
Oh yeah, I know. You went straight to the.
I sure did.
deal.
You know what? I'm gonna run back, guys, real quick and throw the news out there. So the quarterbacks, but I missed it. There's some news. I got to stay on task with the beginning part of it. So news-wise, guys, obviously, Aaron Jones suffered an MCL sprain. He is likely to miss 1 to 2 weeks now in this coming couple weeks here now. Likely you're having back at least before the fantasy playoffs, which will be a good thing. So but it seems like it's not as serious as it was once, broadcast during the game. So that's great news. Colt McCoy, he left with a pectoral injury. He seems like he's going to be okay if he needed to start next week. If Kyle Murray can't go once again, Baker Mayfield suffered a knee injury, but coaches reports early on saying that he's probably going to play in this game, which Baker's been through like 20 injuries this year, and yet some continues to play, which God bless him, man. He is a tough guy. Not good for fantasy, but he's a tough guy. Anthony Schwartz suffered a concussion. Not really big news, but had to mention it. CeeDee Lamb left with an arm contusion at some point in their crazy blowout win. I never heard much about it after it, so it's probably nothing. Dallas Goddard does have a head injury. I think it's a concussion, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was still in protocol today. Damian Harris is still in protocol, did not practice again today on Monday, which would be good for our Ramondre Stevenson owners. And Cordell Patterson has a sprained ankle. Didn't realize this, and there's a really good chance he misses this Thursday night game against the New England Patriots. So you might want to look in the different directions for if you're a Cordell Patterson fan. So we might talk about some guy later today. But back to those quarterbacks we were mentioning before, guys. Just to name a couple others off. Mac Jones has been played really well lately. They play Atlanta on Thursday night. Trevor Simeon has kind of filled in decently well for the Saints offense, and they play Philly. Philly's a little tough, but he's played well enough that he could at least give you maybe 17 if you need it. Whoever plays for Cleveland this week, they do play the Detroit Lions, even though there was a tie this week. Detroit Lions the Cleveland Browns are a much better team than the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now. And then Jimmy G, if he plays well enough tonight, you could trust him against the Jacksonville Jaguars next week for sure. And then don't forget Justice Fields, rookie quarterback for the Chicago Bears. He was looking good up into his bye. Now he gets the Baltimore Ravens, who their defense didn't look too good last Thursday night. But let's see if that rushing floor that Fields presents could be enough to make him fantasy relevant moving forward the rest of the season. So those are the rest of the quarterbacks that we could recommend to you guys if you need to pick up. So we'll head over to the RBs now. Coach Jibbs, what do you got for us at RB, man? Who's your first RB?
Ooh, my first RB is still going to be Ramondre Stevenson. He's not as owned. I know his ownership got up in specific platforms, but still, I didn't know Damian Harris is still out in the concussion protocol. Obviously, there's a lot of time before game day and things can change, but we did see him go 100 yards on 20 carries, and he scored twice. And the Patriots running back has scored, at least the lead running back has scored in 6 straight games. And I don't know if things are going to change. This Patriots team's actually looking pretty good. They look like they have a sense of like a good football team, like offensively, defensively. They just know what they're doing. And I don't see them going away from the running backs, just how they just operate. So that's why I still like Stevenson, especially if he gets his Falcons matchup next week.
On the short week, it could be a really big game. I didn't realize it was this Thursday, even though I mentioned already that the Patriots are playing on Thursday. That could be really big that they might just let him rest one more week. So we might get another great week out of Stevenson. I don't know if his future for long term is fantastic because it is a committee, and who knows what good old Bill wants to do with that backfield. But if Damian Harris is out, Stevenson has to be a top priority pickup because usually running backs do perform very well on Thursday Night Football. And Stevenson, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, you could have that any night. And you saw the Dallas Cowboys running backs both perform very well. So Stevenson could be in for a big week this week. So he should definitely be everyone's top waiver wire priority pickup. For me, guys, who would I have to go with here at this point? It's definitely a tough one right now. There's not a ton of running backs that I would really want to go out to. I guess my next one for me would be Deante Foreman. He did lead the Tennessee Titans in snaps and in carries this past week here, and he actually led them in receiving in terms of running backs. It's not a great committee backfield right now. There's obviously a three-way head going, but Deante Foreman seems to look so far through these first 2 weeks the best running back on this team here. Again, he isn't someone I'm rushing to pick up on the waiver wire because I think it's still somewhat of a committee, but he's definitely probably the next best choice because if that potential, they decide to give him more work there, it could be something that would be very helpful in fantasy. We know that is usually a pretty good, when a running back can see opportunity, that's usually how it works. Kyle mentioned Stevenson helped me win my Scott Fishbowl matchup. I'll love to hear that. I wish I had him on one of my teams, but do not. But yeah, Deante Foreman's my number 2 pickup probably on the week. So, Coach Jibbs, who do you got as your next RB pickup?
I agree. He's a definitely solid number 2, considering like the names we got this week. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the touches and Wayne Gallman. Like I'm not like telling you to start him and firing him up or anything, but for him just to be a guy who's been peddling running back on this roster and get 15 carries, and people drafted Mike Davis in the 5th round, 6th round or so, and he's been getting 9, 8, 4. He's basically unusable now, and that shows me a lot. So, hey, like if Cordell Patterson is going to be out for at least this week, like you could take a shot on him, but I don't think it's going to be like a long-term thing. But it was definitely crazy to see his utilization in the offense in a weird game for the Falcons yesterday.
Yeah, and I looked to make sure like most of that wasn't like in the blowout. He did see some work in the first half here. Again, I think they were being blown out already at that point, but he was much more efficient with the ball than Mike Davis has been basically all season at this point. And if Patterson's out, I mean, I don't know how they can give Mike Davis all this work, who he's been just so inefficient. So outside of his receptions, I mean, he is just terrible this season. So Wayne Gallman did show some light to this offense here. They might work him in here in a short week. It'd be hard to trust him in starting lineups, but if you're a desperate running back like some of us are, it might be worth your wire to go get a guy like Wayne Gallman right now. All right, let's see here. Who can I mention here next? I really don't like a lot of running backs. They're really outside of Stevenson. It's really not a great running back thing. I guess Ito Benjamin, he did see some work this past week here. Again, it's not great, but we know James Conner history with his injury history, that when seeing a bigger workload, maybe that takes some effect. Maybe you get yourself Ito Benjamin. He could end up being a 1-week starter, maybe the following week in week 11. So I think they're actually on a bye in week 12, actually. So this could be a week where he could end up seeing a decent play. I believe that they play Seattle, and Seattle does allow up some use in the receiving game. We saw Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon do see some receiving work this past week. So Ito Benjamin, who saw some touches there, could end up seeing some work as a really low-end flex option. It's not the greatest, but if you're looking for a running back play, he could be available for you in this matchup here. And then a couple others. Basically, all the Baltimore Raven running backs besides Freeman are under 40%. Any one of them could be worth the start or worth the pickup, like Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell, all could be worth pickups if necessary. Brandon Bolden, if obviously Damian Harris is out again, he could be an interesting option on this Thursday Night Football. He did see some work in this game. If Jeff Wilson sees a role this week, he could be worth a pickup for sure. If Chris Carson is out this week, Alex Collins could be worth a pickup. He saw the rushing work and saw 40 yards on the ground. Not great, but they do play the Cardinals this coming week. Ty Johnson in PPR leagues has his receiving ability there for sure. I think he saw 6 targets in this past game here, especially if Mike White does play once again as a starter. Now, Jamar Jefferson could be an interesting option too here. I had him as possibly my number 2 pickup on my turn, but his injury kind of scares me off a little bit. But he did see some work early on in this past game here, and they do play the Cleveland Browns, who just let up a ton of rushing to the New England Patriots this past week. So if he's healthy, he could be a guy you could kind of pick up for free now and see if Jamal Williams doesn't play once again. And if he can, his injury isn't something severe, he could be something special for you this past week. And then Sony Michel, obviously still under there. He's attached to a high-power offense. You might want to go get him as well. And obviously, if there's any backups out there for your backups, you might want to pick them up now and just hold on to them if you can, because once your starting running back goes down, they're going to be a free-for-all for everyone else. Don't let that happen. I know that's happened to a couple of us this season, so don't let your backups get stashed. So, all right, Jibs, we are on to the next part of our show, and it's the wide receiver pickups of the week. Who's your number one wide receiver pickup, Jibs?
Another nasty group, because I think a lot of people got smart and started picking some of these guys who've been left on waivers the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to go with Marcus Johnson from the Tennessee Titans with another injury related, with Julio Jones being out for, I guess, 3 weeks or next 2 weeks. And we saw him perform. Like, I was watching the game, and it was a close game throughout to like the end of the fourth quarter. But every time I saw a big play happen, I thought it was A.J. Brown. No, it was Marcus Johnson. And, dude, he was out there performing. So, like, just to have 100 yards out receiving and haven't been, like, basically made an impact the whole rest of the whole half of the other never mind, the whole first half of the season. But for me, he showed me something in the offense, and I think that's something to be had. He plays Houston next week, and then he follows up with New England, so I think he could perform well in the Houston game. And we've seen the New England Patriots kind of like zero out those number one targets, and that's A.J. Brown. So I figure you could probably have another good game in the following week, then a bye.
Yeah, no, he has played kind of well since coming back from, I think he was on injury early on in the season here. And since he's been back, let me just take a look at his stats real quick. I mean,
back in week 5.
He's had 2 games over 50 yards. I mean, nothing great, but, Julio Jones did come back at some point. They pretty much took him off the field. And obviously, his first game with Julio off, he kind of went back into that performing role. So it's definitely something that would consider, especially in a good matchup for this week as well. Again, this is not a great fantasy week for most of these RBs and running backs outside of Stevenson. I'm going to go with my first one here just because I know Jibs wasn't going to pick him because I mentioned him last week on the waiver wire. I mentioned him on the Start and Sit show, and just Jamal Agnew. He had, I think, 4 targets this past week. Didn't catch any of them, but he did have a 72-yard touchdown, basically, and that pretty much saved his fantasy week. And I think there's still time for him to kind of rebound from a bad receiving game. And for him, to be honest, he's seeing the work in this offense here. We mentioned it last week. He's leading the team in targets here. They just didn't connect this past week. I'm still looking to get Jamal Agnew on my team, at least a bench spot for right now. I wish I knew who they were playing this week offhand. The Jaguars. The Jaguars play San Fran, Atlanta, the Rams. Again, decent matchups where the slot receiver could produce for him. They're going to be behind in a lot of these games, so I expect Jamal Agnew to be involved in this offense. And I like that they're using him in the role that Shavisha Shenault was supposed to be used in, but they're using Jamal Agnew in this role, which is great. The kind of hybrid role. They get him out in the running back, they get him out in the flat. They use him in different ways, which is great. Jamal Agnew has got to be my number one pickup this week. And again, it's not great. It's not a great pickup, but he's someone who could probably provide you some kind of a low floor each and every single week in fantasy football. So, Jibs, what about you? What about your number 2 guy?
I'm going to take Traquan Smith. And I like Deante Harris too, but I just want a guy who's playing more snaps consistently. We've seen Traquan Smith hover at least over 80% over the last 2 weeks, while Deante Harris is playing the third wide receiver role on a team that probably wants to run the ball a little bit more. And he usually kind of pans out 30-40%. So I saw Traquan Smith be utilized in the end zone quite frequently in the game against the Titans, so that could be a sign of things. But for me, it's just he scored a touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games. So if you have to be bottom barrel and digging, I'll take Traquan Smith off the waiver wire at this moment.
No, I like that. I had him as a sleeper overall on my end. I thought his involvement in the offense seemed to be the number 1 guy in this offense. Trevor Simeon seems to be kind of like using him at least a little bit in this offense, and they need somebody to step up, and it could very much well be him. I'm liking what I've seen out of him. I mean, Callaway's been a disappointment. Harris is more of that big playability, and it's not something that's consistent. So Smith is a solid option, Jibs. I like that. For me, my number 2 guy has got to be Kendrick Bourne. Bourne from the New England Patriots. He has been so involved in this offense over the last 5 games now at this point. He has been wide receiver 10 from week 5 to week 10 at this point. He is somehow being involved in every which way on the offense, whether it's he threw a pass here and there, he's catching balls, he's seeing a good target share, he's getting rushing work on the ground. And you saw it all this past week how much involvement he is. He's kind of just like their Swift Army Knight right now in the offense. And Nelson Aguilar's not doing anything. Jonnu Smith's not doing anything. Jacoby Meyer caught a touchdown for the first time in his career. Congratulations to him. But he hasn't done that much this season outside of Hunter Henry seeing red zone touchdowns. I mean, it's been Kendrick Bourne, and they play the Atlanta Falcons this week here. And, Mac Jones has been solid. So I think if you're looking for a running back help, a good flex option to plug in this week, I think Kendrick Bourne could be that guy for you. He's been pretty solid, and he's basically unowned everywhere in fantasy. So he could be a good waiver wire pickup for you this week. A couple others. KJ Osborne, he hasn't really performed at all, but he's still out there. Braylon Edwards, he had a nice game, but is it consistent? We don't know. Russell Gage, basically a no-show this past week. Maybe he can kind of turn around this week. DeAndre Carter from Washington, he's been kind of steadily involved in this offense over the last couple weeks now. He's seeing work in this offense outside of, Terry McLaurin. Amon St. Brown had a good game coming off the bye. Again, if the rookie can kind of get things going, that'd be great. Detroit's pretty tough. Of course, Tim Patrick's always there, of course, if you need a guy. So that is most of the RB pickups. Wide receiver pickups. If there's someone else out there who's obviously more of a no-name guy, go get them guys because, again, these are all under 40% guys here. This isn't like, 50, 60%. It's all under 40%. We don't do anything higher than that because more than not, leagues don't probably have these guys. So, but we'll move on. Tight ends now, Jibs. Who's your number 1 tight end pickup this week?
It's Cole Kmet, and last time we saw him, he had 6 catches for 87 yards in week 9. For me, honestly, watching Justin Fields play throughout the year, he's looking like he's catching on a little bit more. He's got a little bit of fire under him. I know he starts off slow, but I think he can kind of deliver in the second half of the season. And at least I expect Cole Kmet to be involved in this game. He has at least 3 catches in the last 4 games. He has at least 5 targets in the last 4 games as well. And this week he gets to go against the Ravens, who give up the second most points to tight ends. And then he gets to go up against the Lions, who gives up the 13th fewest points to tight ends. But they're Lions, so they can be had. And I like his next 2 matchups. So Cole Kmet, sign me up.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward if Cole Kmet can have that second half breakout this season because he has been kind of coming on as of late. And I think the coach, Nick Nagy, even mentioned that Cole Kmet's getting to his own finally, which is always great to hear especially as a dynasty owner who has a lot of Cole Kmet shares. So in redraft seasonal leagues, he's definitely worthy of a pickup if you're looking for someone. For me, this guy's just been super consistent. It's Dan Arnold. He's still under 30%, which he needs to be up there, guys. You need to own Dan Arnold at this point in fantasy. This man has 4 of 6 games since joining the Jags of at least 60 yards. He seems to be Trevor Lawrence's favorite target. If you're looking for tight end, go get him. Put him on your team. Get rid of Tyler Higbee. Get rid of, at this point, Dalton Schultz isn't even worth holding on to at this point. This man has been fire, and they're going to continue to have to throw the ball constantly. None of the wide receivers seems to be having their connection, unless you're talking about Jamal Agnew, with Trevor Lawrence. But Darren Arnold, he needs to be owned, guys. He's owned at under 30%. That needs to change immediately.
It was funny. I was checking my roster at one game, and I have Noah Fant, and I started Dan Arnold last week, and I left him in my lineup. I'm looking at 1 o'clock. I'm like, bro, I was like, no, I have Fant. What am I doing? And then he did all right, and then he had a better game than Noah Fant. So hey, give it up to Dan Arnold, man. Get that man on your rosters, guys.
Hell yeah, do that, guys. Kyle just picked up Dan Arnold in our charity league. Nice play there, Kyle.
That's sneaky play.
I feel bad for you, Jess, because you might have lost this week.
It don't matter. It's over. Take everybody.
And what you're losing right now, man, I'll tell you right now because I'm not going to let the league know, but you're going to be acquiring Jamal Agnew, and you're going to be subtracting DK Metcalf.
That's fine. As long as it's great.
So yeah, that's a tough one, but it's always it's a fun charity league. Everyone seems to be enjoying it. Coach Shiv's not having the greatest time in there, but
it's for fun, man. Take anybody.
fun, man. You've been screwed over twice so far with this.
I'm gonna trade like everybody just to diversify now.
If it makes sense, I get you. All right, so a couple other tight ends. If you're looking at CJ Uzama, he's coming off a bye. Evan Ingram is kind of performing a little bit up to his bye. Gerald Everett, first game back with Ross, he saw six for I think 60 yards. Jack Doyle has been kind of involved with the Colts. Cameron Brate, especially if Gronk's out for more period of time. Jeff Swain from the Titans, he seems to be their main guy. And Adam Trotman, he's seen at least 5 targets in the last 3 games, over each of the last 3 games now. So he's seeing some work. It's only a matter of time maybe before he kind of has his second half breakout season. So he is definitely someone that you could keep your eyes on if you're looking for a pickup in the deeper man league, probably. So he's my other one. Let's see. Kyle says, got lucky and avoided losing to the secret play, but being forced to trade away a player, even though I have a losing record. You have been lucky because people have been screwed over pretty bad with that. So, but it's all for fun. It's charity, guys. So, all right, Jibs. We got one last segment here, and then we'll get out of here for the night. And it's keep or cut. There's a bunch of players that are kind of around that mark where, like, do you keep them? Do you get rid of them on your team? What do you do here? We'll start, and it's just running backs and wide receivers, guy. We'll start with Adrian Peterson. Hot pickup just about 2 weeks ago. Hasn't really done too much outside of the touchdown that he got last week. They do play Houston, but do you keep or cut Adrian Peterson?
I'm cutting him. I'm looking at that little thing, Foreman, down the street.
Yeah, I think I would hold one more week and see if he gets things going with Houston because it is a good matchup. But if he doesn't really get what we want, at least have even an RB3, I think you can cut him after this coming week here for sure. It's just not great. All right, any Houston running back, are they worth rostering off the bye? I don't know if they're even on anyone's roster. They might not be, but just have to mention it.
I'll hold Johnson just to see if Tyrod can just get it back to like where he needs to be. So if he could have one good offensive output, maybe I'll keep him on my team. But if he shits the bed, it's over.
All right, I
don't want anybody.
I would say just cut them all, honestly. They're not really worth your time. The rushing efficiency there in Houston has been pretty bad over the last whole season, basically, outside of week 1. So I don't want anything to do with that. J.D. McKissick, he was your sleeper last week, Jibs. He did not perform to your standard. Because Antonio Gibson, for some reason, decided to get an amazing game out of him. But do you hold on to J.D. McKissick, or was it just a bad week last week?
Milo, I'll hold.
Hold.
Let me get my dad.
No, go do your thing, Jibs. Yeah, I'd hold 2 guys. I mean, he had a bad week. There's going to be weeks where they're not winning against a good team. They're going to be behind in a lot of games, and I think this is a good time to buy low on J.D. McKissick and good time to sell high on Antonio Gibson. I don't care if he had 24 carries. Is a winning game usually performs better for running backs, and Antonio Gibson took full advantage of that. So, all right, Jibs, Corey Davis coming off bye, had a decent game actually against the Buffalo Bills. Do you keep or cut Corey Davis?
I'll keep him. I think he performed a lot better with Zach Wilson, to say the least. And Zach Wilson, in my estimation, probably will be back after Mike Whiting's outing. And obviously, I don't want Joe Flacco in there just shitting the bed. So that's what I take.
All right. I respect it. I mean, he's had only 3 games over 50 yards, 6 games over 40 yards. You could keep him, yeah. I'm not thrilled about him. He's a good bench wide receiver for you if you're looking for a replacement for a week. But again, I'm not thrilled about having Corey Davis on my team. So, but you can keep him. Russell Gage.
Cut.
Yeah, cut. There's just too much up and down with Russell Gage in this Falcons offense. I'd rather just get rid of it and let someone else deal with that. I mean, the matchup looked great for him this week, and he had 3 targets on the day. I know they probably sat most of their players in the second half, but it's just how many games are we going to see like that all season? It's not worth it. All right, Cortland Sutton.
Ooh, wow.
But he has done nothing since basically the return of Jerry Jeudy here.
Well, there's a lot of things going on there because even with Jerry Jeudy coming back, we're also seeing Albert O have a more involvement in the offense. So it's like tight ends and then Jerry Jeudy and then some Patrick, and then Courtland Sutton gets his 2-3 deep balls a game, and probably ain't going to connect because Teddy Bridgewater can't throw more than 10 yards. So
he's had 20.
In a shallow league, I will cut him. But obviously, if you're playing in a 12-man league or like a 3-wide receiver league, you got to hold him.
21 fantasy points over the last 4 weeks combined.
Yeah.
I'm holding him. You put him on your bench and you hold him, and hopefully he comes out of this bad, he's playing a lot. It's not like he's not playing. He's just not seeing the targets. I would hold if I can. Again, like Jib said, 10-man league, or, obviously you'd probably cut him, honestly. You're looking for something else. But in a 12-man league, 14-man league, you have to keep him. But again, it is a concern with him right now. So
that's like the Bengals West.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, you just don't know who's going to play starting and who's going to be really taking that next step in that offense there. And it's like a running back committee. We just don't know what's going to happen with that committee, and it's just terrible. Jarvis Landry.
Oh my God, I'll cut him too.
You too.
But, it's just that Browns offense is too inconsistent for me. I don't know when Baker's going to have a good game. Even if he has a good game, he usually just has like 3-4 touchdowns, and it's like for 200 yards or a little bit over that. But they show me the tendency they want to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball. And even if they do get in the red zone, I've seen plenty of times they kind of slack off, run the ball a couple of times, and throw it to a tight end.
Yes.
Every time. Njoku, Cooper, every time. So.
Yep, I'm okay cutting him as well. So, Mike Williams.
He's a hold for me. Like he's being used. I just don't know what's going on. Like it's pretty much classic Mike Williams with like old Phillip Rivers. But like I saw him get a couple end zone targets and literally just messed up, or it was an off throw, or he didn't catch it with his hands. But he's getting, like I said, the guy who's getting that many targets, he's always going to be on my team. So, like, you cut him, I'm going to get him. Trade me in before you cut him. How about that?
I respect it. He has scored 18.7 fantasy points in half-point PPR over the last 4 games he's played. So, even less than Courtland Sutton. But, yeah, you can't cut him. We're hoping that the knee injury has something to do with his slump. And he's getting the looks. He almost had a touchdown this past week. I watched some of that game on Red Zone. He almost caught a touchdown this past week. Probably would have saved his fantasy day, but it didn't. And the matchups are okay down the stretch. I think you have to hold on to him, obviously, and continue to hope that he can bounce back from his midseason slump. And then one last one, Marvin Jones.
Oh, he's on my team. He's getting the first door. He's getting dropped. Yeah, I'm just saying that. First one out of the door.
Over his last what is it?
He probably has 6 points over the last 3 games.
He has 13.6 fantasy points over the last 3 games. But over his last 7, he's had just 1 game over 10 fantasy points. So, yeah, you can cut him if you need to. If you're looking to pick up someone else to help you out with more upside, you can. You can hold him too, but he's definitely a guy that's more lenient to being cut than hold for sure. So that's going to wrap us up tonight, guys. That is going to be our cut and keep segment of our show. And yeah, we're going to wrap things up here, guys. So we thank you all for listening in. As always, please go follow us on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy. Please follow us on Instagram at The Fantasy Coaches. You can hit us up on our Twitter pages, to always ask any fantasy questions, whether it's start and sits, whether it's waiver wire, whether it's trade talks. Hit us up with those trade talks. It's always good to get a second opinion. I know myself, I always ask Jibs every trade that I do basically and just get his view on it, because you always love to have an outside view of what you're looking at to kind of move your mind. It's always a good thing. I know Jibs does it to me too all the time.
Oh, for sure. I just need like that stamp of approval, like I'm not thinking crazy or this just looks too good to be true in certain situations. But it's always good to have like a third, second person checking your stuff. It's like right.
Exactly, and we're not here. We don't have an agenda, guys. We're just going to give you our advice, and you're not gonna, we're not looking to screw you guys over. So hit us up with your trade questions. More than happy to help you out. And as always, you can follow me and Coach Jibs on Twitter at Coach Stephen P.
Hot take Concho.
So give us both a follow. Ask us any fantasy questions you might have, guys. We're here to help you guys out, help you guys win championships because it is getting close. So until then, guys, we'll be back on Thursday to talk start and sits for Week 11. Until then, guys, enjoy your Week 10 and have a great one.